Hi, this is Simon Drew, and you're listening to the Walled Garden Podcast. This show belongs to the podcast network of the Walled Garden Philosophical Society, an international community of philosophers and seekers dedicated to the pursuit of truth, wisdom, virtue, and the divine, wherever they may be found. To find out more, go to thewalledgarden.com. But for now, let's caretake the gardens of our minds, one meaningful conversation at a time. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Walled Garden Podcast. So today I'm having a conversation with somebody who you may not be familiar with quite yet, but nonetheless somebody who is very, very involved in the Walled Garden Philosophical Society. I'm talking about Scott Balentine. Now, Scott currently serves as the president of the board in the Walled Garden Philosophical Society. He also serves as the CFO at the moment. And, Scott is somebody who I met him, actually, it would have been a couple of years ago, because he has been a long-time listener of the Practical Stoic and now the Walled Garden. But it wasn't until we founded the organization that I really started getting to know Scott a lot more. And it's been such a pleasure to do that over the past few months. You know, Scott is a guy who has extensive experience in business, but as you'll hear from the interview today, he also has a lot of experience in theology and philosophy. And in many ways, he came to Stoicism, as I'm sure is the case with many of you, out of this yearning for something more profound in life, or a deeper connection, a better grasp of what reality is and how we can weather the storms in life. And so this is really the first time that we're having a conversation on the show with Scott. And I'm really excited to introduce you all to him because Scott is the guy who's doing so much of the behind-the-scenes work in the Walled Garden Philosophical Society, and so much of the work that kind of goes unthanked by the general public when you're looking in and seeing what we're doing. Because he's along with Kai Whiting as well, the two of them have been quite synchronistic in their working together. But they're helping so much with the legalities, the contracts, the agreements, the taxes, all of this sort of stuff. And man, we really need excellent people who have a solid philosophical grounding, even in those areas of the company. And so it's just it's an absolute pleasure to work with Scott. I have just loved getting to know him even more, and this conversation is the next step. And so I really hope that you enjoy this conversation, because we do explore Scott's path to finding Stoicism, as well as some of the intricacies, the details of each step along the way. But nonetheless, I do want to also, just before we dive in, I really want to recommend that you go to thewalledgarden.com/events, and you will find all of the events that we have coming up over the next few months. We've got some exciting stuff on the horizon. including something that we mentioned in today's episode, which is Stoicon X Midwest. Now, this is an initiative that Scott and Kai have been working on tirelessly for the past few months, and they've been really pulling together just a phenomenal lineup of speakers. We've got Gregory B. Sadler, we've got Chris Fisher, we've got Sharon LaBelle, Aldo Danusi, Anthony Long, Leonidas Konstantakos, and of course somebody who we had on the show very recently, William O. Stevens. And so this is just such an excellent lineup of speakers who Kai and Scott have pulled together. This event is happening on the 12th of November, so only a couple of weeks away, and it's free to register, and you can go to stoiconxmidwest.com to register. Otherwise, you can just go to thewalledgarden.com/events, and you will find all of the events that we've got coming up in the next few months, as well as on the 12th of November, Stoicon X Midwest. So we'd invite you to come along to that. And one thing that I do want to mention is Kai and Scott have been very kind of understanding that not everybody has a whole day to dedicate to coming to a conference like this. And so what's really exciting about this is they've actually put all of these speakers into a 2 to 2.5 hour slot, right? And so you don't have to give up your whole day. You can come along to this event, and it's just going to be jam-packed with wisdom for you to take away and to use in your life, and to reconsider the Stoic philosophy from all of the different angles that are going to be covered on that day. So we welcome you to come to that. And as I said, just go to thewalledgarden.com/events. With all of that said, I think it's time to jump into this conversation. I want to present to you again the president of the board and the CFO of the Walled Garden Philosophical Society, Scott Balentine. So, Scott, this is really an exciting conversation for me because, we've been involved with each other now for the past few months, almost actually a year, probably, since we started talking about all of the walled garden and everything. But even before that, as a listener and supporter, you've always been there, even back when it was the Practical Stoic podcast. And I guess just to introduce this conversation so that everybody knows, Scott, you're a person who I brought on board in the Walled Garden quite early. You're a person who was right there along with us from the start, as a supporter. And then when I started to get to know you more, I was like, man, this guy really knows what he's talking about in the areas of specialty that you specialize in. And then when I was thinking about people who we wanted to have on board in the Walled Garden, I was thinking about this last night. One of the things that I'm really, really grateful for about how we've set up the Walled Garden so far is that every single person who we have on board as a contributor or a director or anybody who's alongside us in this mission, it was always character first when making the decision. It was always, do we feel as though this person is genuinely a good role model for people, somebody who is genuinely seeking, genuinely after answers in life. And that's what I find you to be. And I'm honored to have you alongside with us. Yeah, that sounds weird. Alongside us. Yeah. Now you know why I was getting this coffee earlier this morning. But Scott, I'm really grateful to have you here. And to everybody who's listening, Scott is doing a lot of the behind the scenes work that nobody really sees, but it all comes out in the success of our mission. And I'm just grateful to you. So thanks, man. I'm excited for this conversation.
Well, thank you, Simon. I appreciate the kind words, and I'm with you. I don't ever want to get involved with something that I don't believe in and something that I can't fully support, and I really don't want to work with people that I don't fully trust and respect. And I definitely respect you and Kai and Sharon and all the others, and I'm just really grateful to be here.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And just for clarity for everybody, so Scott, you're currently in the position of CFO, Chief Financial Officer of the Walled Garden Philosophical Society, also the president of the board, which is something that I have just watched in marveling spirit, as you've really taken on that role and doing it in such a professional way, and you're mentoring me in doing that, because I'm really learning so much from you. But I guess we could start with talking about Stoicon X Midwest coming up on the 12th of November, because this is an initiative that you and Kai have been kind of spearheading in the Walled Garden Philosophical Society. It's not specifically linked to our group, but nonetheless, you guys are taking on the project. And I guess we should start by saying, when did you get involved in Stoicism? What was your kind of, I don't know, journey to philosophy and then to Stoicism, or talk to me about that.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess going all the way back, I was raised in a very, very conservative church. And I went on in college, got my bachelor's degree in biblical philosophy. And I preached for a little while and realized that wasn't for me. I wasn't cut out to do that. And I continued working in leadership roles. For about 6 years, I led the adult education curriculum for a congregation of about 1,000. And I felt like I was helping a lot of people, but I still was missing something. And during that time, I really began to struggle with my Christian faith. And so I started looking for other frameworks, other philosophies that could supplement where I was at. And I had come across Stoicism several times. I think my first introduction really into Stoicism was with you and Ryan Holiday. And I think I found the Practical Stoic just a few months after you launched. And I found the topics, the issues that you were addressing to be very meaningful to me. Ryan Holiday, I felt like his material was very good to lay a great foundation of understanding of what this whole Stoicism thing is all about. But as I continued to struggle, trying to find my way, trying to find where I needed to be, Stoicism really just seemed to be really benefited me, because it helped me to really see where I was in the world and who I really need to be. I believe that the basic tenets, the values, the principles of Stoicism have helped me to be able to really come to an understanding of how I can be the best person I can be, whether that's a spouse to my wife, a father to my two sons, or friends. And I really feel like it's really given me the tools that I need to really develop and become the person that I've always wanted to be.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. And what I find so interesting is, even just thinking about the fact that you kind of come to Stoicism, a few months after I start the Practical Stoic, and, you've been kind of listening in, watching in from the very start of this whole adventure. And I don't see the Practical Stoic as necessarily separate to the Walled Garden. It was a natural evolution, because I jumped into Stoicism and just started exploring the philosophy, and there was never any promise on the Practical Stoic that it would stay all about Stoicism, or that it would always be the thing that I want to explore. But I guess, it's so cool that, you're also bringing that thread into the Walled Garden of that understanding of, the origins of this whole project, really. And that's something that even, it's kind of difficult, right? Because I do all the speaking so often, and it's difficult to put myself in the shoes of somebody who was listening on the listening end, and actually receiving the things that I was saying. And I just think it's beautiful, So what sort of changes? Well, actually, I really want to dive back into the preaching, the conservative upbringing, that sort of stuff, because I think it's an interesting, life experience that I've always been kind of fascinated with. The South, very conservative Christians. I don't know. Maybe just tell me more about that kind of upbringing, and maybe what you felt was lacking about that. You mentioned you had like a kind of struggle of faith. What did you find lacking, and perhaps what was the evolution then? Are you still Christian? Are you still practicing, or if not? But yeah, just talk to me about that.
Sure. So I was raised in the Church of Christ, which is really very, very similar in many ways to Southern Baptists. I grew up in St. Louis, just outside of St. Louis, Missouri, and um, I was I I always have questioned. I've always tried to understand things that I could become involved in, and there were several points in my childhood as I was questioning, where I was told by leaders of the church at that congregation that there were some questions you just don't ask; you just take those on faith, and that never really sat well with me. I can remember in college, in several of my more core studies and classes. There's one in particular. It was a theology class, and it was funny. One day in particular, the professor was we were talking through. I can't remember the exact topic, but I remember that I had several fingers in my notes and in the textbook, and because I had my hands full, people were raising their hand for me to get the professor's attention, and the professor, he was a great guy. I thought the world of him, but he had material to cover for that class, and I just was continually asking questions. And whenever I graduated from college, my wife and I moved to Lexington, Kentucky. She got her PhD in psychology from University of Kentucky, and I was fortunate enough to work with a small congregation about an hour east of Lexington in Owensville, Kentucky. Great experience. Congregation was about 50 in size whenever we got there. It was essentially made up of two extended families that had intermarried. Wow. And it was very tight knit. I say that to say it was very tight knit. Great people to be with. I preached there for about 18 months, and we would live in Lexington, and then we'd go there on Friday nights, and Saturday, Sunday, I would spend time with the members of the congregation visiting. And of course, I preached, and being such a small congregation, many Sunday mornings, I taught Sunday school, I preached, I led singing, I did everything that was needed to do. And it was a great experience, but I just kept struggling with where I was, and because of the struggles that I had, the questions that I had, if I was really the right person to lead that congregation. And so after about 18 months, I resigned my position there. And probably one of my greatest regrets is that I didn't really communicate to the congregation why I was leaving. Because I just felt I was ashamed. I felt like, I should know this stuff. I should not have these questions. But we went back and we lived in Lexington for another few years, and we moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where I am now, back in 2001, and got involved with a local congregation. As I mentioned, it's about 1,000 in size, and I was asked to serve as a deacon over the adult education with another gentleman, and it was a great experience. I felt like I was contributing a lot. I felt like I was helping people to grow their faith. But I felt like something was missing. And then in the summer of 2009, we had a guest speaker come from England to speak to us about God and relationships. He had recently written a book on this. Terence Fretheim is that professor's name. Great book. I thought it was really good material, but it caused me to question. Growing up, I was never taught that you're supposed to think about having a relationship with God. It's just He's there, and there was really no emphasis on that, and that really began the downward spiral for me, because in my life I had never really felt like God was there. I knew He was. I had faith that He was, but whenever I was talking to people when they were praying, they would say that they could feel God's presence, and I had never felt that. And then over the next couple of years, I really, really continued struggling with that. I continued leading the adult education program, but I began to feel like I was, an unwanted stepchild that was outside looking in and watching the family eating Christmas dinner every time I was in worship. And I got to be really resentful. And ultimately, during that time, for about 2 years, I spoke to as many people as I could that I respected within the congregation and within other religious groups, and I just never could get a good answer. And so I resigned my position there, and we actually changed churches because it was just really difficult for me to be there. But at that point, I just kind of began really thinking something was wrong with me. And I honestly felt like, I believe and still believe that God is a loving Father. But in my situation, I couldn't help but think that if I was a son of God and he was my father, then something was wrong. I couldn't help but think that if that was the case, if I was treated my children like I felt like I was being neglected, my kids would be taken away from me. And that's not who God is. So I then began to think, well, maybe I'm not one of his children. Maybe I wasn't chosen by God. And that kind of went against everything that I believed growing up. And ultimately in 2020, I just decided that, I'd been pushing for 11, 12 years at that point, and it was causing nothing but pain. And so I decided just to let go and not try to force a relationship, because you can't force a relationship with people, much less with God. So we continued attending church, but I really began to not think of myself as a Christian anymore. I desperately would like to be. I want to get back to that point. And I really began, as I was letting go of that, began seeing that maybe Stoicism would be a way for me to regain my Christian faith. I've always thought that Stoicism is a great supplement to any faith, whether it be Christian, whether you're a Muslim or Buddhist, whatever. But I believe that the core tenets, the principles of Stoicism, are very much in line with what a lot of these mainstream religions are teaching. So I'm really hoping that as I continue to grow as a person, as the way that I feel like Stoicism is helping me to grow, it'll allow me to be able to consider myself a Christian again. So that's where I'm at in that journey.
Man, I really appreciate you sharing that. That's it's a level of depth into your background that we haven't had the chance to go through yet, and I think it just really helps me to understand who you are and kind of where you're at. And you must have had to have a lot of courage to actually, you're this preacher, you're a shepherd of a congregation, and I know how difficult it is for people to leave a church. I know that there are also many people out there who may be clergymen or, who, maybe they have lost their faith, but man, they just don't have the courage to, leave the position, leave their livelihood, maybe they've got, maybe they've even got a family and this is their livelihood. And it's like, imagine trying to figure that mess out, but you had the courage to actually say, okay, no, I'm not just here for a job. I'm not just, this is about actually finding something, actually having a relationship. Man, I don't know, was there anything that you did to kind of prepare yourself for making that decision? Because I know I can't even imagine like the stress of making that decision.
Yeah, it was tough. It was one of the harder decisions I've made, especially because of the relationships I had in the congregation. I spent hours every weekend visiting with them, and during basketball season in Kentucky, those visits meant I would go from house to house watching part of the Kentucky basketball, which was fine. It was a great bonding experience. But it was tough. I think for me, the question I had to keep coming back to was, if this is where I am at spiritually, how can I properly lead this congregation who's looking to me for guidance? And it wasn't just me leading. There were other strong leaders, but I was most visible because I was in the pulpit every Sunday. And I just couldn't get past the concern that ultimately, if I continued trying to force that I would be doing a disservice to those who were looking to me.
Yeah, yeah, and again, not only courage, but incredible what's the right integrity, to actually, like you say, absolutely, I'm not just going to be the person standing up here talking, no, there's a real job to do. And I want to talk about that job because I feel it's whether or not people ascribe to a particular religion or faith or particular philosophy, I think that we still all need a shepherd in our life, and I think that that is in part the role of the preacher or the pastor or the clergy person, to be a shepherd of a flock of people who really need somebody there to visit them once a week, or to just sit with them in a time of need, or to give them some little bit of human to human advice in a vulnerable moment. And I do worry that as people leave these religions out in the open world, and of course we've all got great teachers and things like that, but where do people go to for their shepherd, somebody who they can just sit with and get that good advice for the soul? Mm-hmm. And I don't know, because even Sharon LaBelle, she often talks with me about how Stoicism really can learn so much from organized religion about how we can come together as a community. We don't have to become a religion, or although if you read the writings of Epictetus, it's like, man, that guy was pretty damn close. He but he was a shepherd. Look at him, he's sitting there with these people, asking him questions, he's giving good advice for the soul, practical advice. I don't know, what do you think, Stoicism can learn from other kind of more organized philosophies or religious sects, and what do you think that religions can learn, or particularly Christianity can learn from the Stoic philosophy?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest, the most beneficial aspects of Stoicism, in my opinion, is the solidness of the foundation upon which it's built. The idea that there is right and wrong, but it's not black and white, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
That there is a way that we are supposed to live, but Stoicism doesn't tell you what that is. Stoicism helps you determine how you can be a better person. Yeah. And I think that I can't really say especially now, but I think as I look around, especially in the US, there are so many different groups, religions included, telling you how you're supposed to live in a prescriptive way. And I don't think that that's what Christianity was originally intended to be. The Bible's not a do's and don'ts. It lays out a framework that you can look to build upon and become a better person. I think, as I mentioned before, I think that Stoicism does a great job with that, and I think that that's something that other groups, whether they be religious or secular, can really learn from. One thing that I really have looked to Stoicism for, in the vacuum that I found myself in, is a community. And that's one of the things that really drew me into wanting to be involved with the Walled Garden, because at the end of the day, we are establishing a community for people who may not necessarily see themselves as Stoics, but people who are looking for truth, people who are looking to add value to not just their lives, but to use their lives to add value to the world. And I think that a lot of religious groups are losing sight of that. In a day and time whenever organizations are losing membership right and left, I think that that's part of the problem. People are being told what to do and what not to do, and the emphasis is being lost on how to live. I guess a couple of weeks ago, I was driving in town here, and I saw a billboard, and it was a Marines billboard. And the message on there just really resonated with me. It hit me in a way that I would not have anticipated from a U.S. Marines billboard. It simply said, find a sense of belonging.
Mm.
And that is something I've been struggling with since I was a kid, since I left the ministry, since I left that other church that I was helping to lead. I felt like I had this massive vacuum in my life. And I think that Stoicism can be used as a way to fill that void, to fill that vacuum, because it teaches you how to properly look at things in the right perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're exactly right. How valuable it is to have clear-sightedness in face of, how you might act in life. And I know that clear-sightedness is almost impossible, but to even just get close to it, to get something that resembles clear-sightedness, but that's it's so interesting how the culture just reflects these issues, even in a billboard for the Marines. It's like even the army is using the language of meaning, community, belonging, and I know that they're struggling to find people at the moment, but man, I think that this is something that is the more we push the kind of the mission of the walled garden along, the more it does feel like, well, I just use the term, but it feels like a mission. We are on a mission here to bring people together. It's interesting. I'm finding it so beautiful to see what happens when the philosophers come together first. If we can gather together and say, you know what, maybe you're an academic, maybe you're just a student, maybe, you're a researcher or you're an author, whatever it is. But across the board, we all do consider ourselves, as philosophers trying to truly seek after truth, and building this community is just so much fun, but also it's extremely meaningful. It's complex. I think I told you very early on, one of my biggest strengths / weaknesses is that I always start projects with a healthy ignorance about how much work it's actually going to take.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what that does for me is I'm always jumping, headfirst in, and then let's see if I can swim. And I've tried, but I really needed to bring people on board with me. And one of the things that I've really been grateful for about you, Scott, is, well, firstly, I should say, having gotten to know you over the past few months, it makes complete sense to me that you're not preaching anymore, but that you're in the positions that you're in. Because, oh my gosh, watching you run a meeting in the walled garden, I'm like, this guy is in his element. He knows what he's doing. He's prepared. Everything is running on time. Everything's going right. Watching you pull all these pieces together to, because I know nothing about the American world of business, because firstly, I wasn't living here. Maybe I've watched a few Grant Cardone videos, but, apart from that, and you've really helped me and the whole walled garden, to become incorporated, to get all these documents together, to pull the team together in the right direction. And, I don't know, do you feel as though you're really starting to find that place that you fit within the culture, having now, left preaching? And I mean, how far is it between when you were preaching and now? What happened in between then? And do you feel like you're getting closer to that sense of, you're doing the thing that you're built to do?
Yeah, I definitely do feel like I'm where I need to be right now. And I appreciate your kind words there. But I as far as your question about what's happened between the time I left the ministry and now, very simply, I've matured. I've grown up. My life has put me in situations that have challenged me, that have caused me to grow in ways that I didn't want to necessarily, but it's been helpful to me to become who I am. The idea of loving your fate. one of the practices within Stoicism, to be able to embrace, but beyond that, to love your fate, to love what happens to you. That's a challenge sometimes, but I think that over the last several years, as I've tried to embrace that, has helped me to be able to see that, the world, bad things in the world don't happen to me; they happen for me. And whenever we can change the way we see things, the way we can see that life is an abundance of opportunities, then we can really begin to have true growth in our lives.
Yeah, especially in America, right? Like I really, since I've gotten over here, I've really felt that sense that there is so much opportunity, and if I could just be the right kind of person, if I could be the right kind of bucket to catch that opportunity, yeah, I mean, even just a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking with Karen Duffy, and she's just encouraging me, and giving me good advice, but what I've found incredibly valuable about setting up this community so far is just the power of having people around you. I think I have a sense of finding archetypal mothers and archetypal fathers. That I think that's actually one thing that I've both developed and also is naturally an inclination of mine to find those people and to receive as much from them as I can. I consider you to embody many of the archetypal father-like figure characteristics. And when you bring people like that together, especially around young people like myself and young people in the walled garden, and even people like Brandon, Juan, these guys who are young like me, and we all need people who are kind of. I was speaking with Rocco last night about this. Rocco, you can't get more of an archetypal kind of father type figure than him. Like, he puts the hard line down, right?
Yes.
But he talked about reaching down, no matter where you are, reaching down to the people below you and pulling them up, so that they can see what you can see. And you do that, and everybody in the walled garden, in terms of our philosophers who we've brought together, they know how to do that. They know how to reach down and pull people up. And that is so incredibly beautiful. It's been so beneficial for me. But yeah, I've just noticed since I've got here to America, and then, obviously now I'm here in this music studio, and Charles Kim, the owner of this studio, he again, if you want an archetypal father, this guy, he is a profound individual. But I've noticed from all of my American counterparts, you might say, there is this sense like, hey, wake up. There's opportunity. There's so much of it. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Like, it's right here, right before you, if you'll just be the right kind of person to take it. And I guess we've had many conversations, in the walled garden around the development of the business and everything. And sometimes, I'm going to ask you for some fatherly advice, because sometimes I see that we're making so much progress in so many different fronts, and people who are looking in, they're like, oh my gosh, this is exciting, but still, there are times when I'm just like, oh my gosh, why are we not here? Why are we not there? Why are we not over here? And I don't know, what do you see about our trajectory so far? What's your sense of, honestly, just, what could we be doing better? What do you think we're doing well? Where do you think we're at? And what have you noticed? Because you now have this incredible business experience. You've got your MBA. You work for a bunch of nonprofits. Yeah, just practical advice for those moments when you just think, oh my gosh, is this really happening? Like, am I on the right track here? I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, what I would recommend is just be able to try, I guess, develop the ability within yourself to try to see the bigger picture. It's very important to focus on goals, but if you can't take a step back and see the bigger picture of how everything is weaving together, it's really easy to get discouraged. It's easy to let it really tire you. what I've really valued with you, Simon, is that you've always been very gung ho, very excited to charge forward, and that's exactly what we need from you. But at the same time, we also need to be able to pull back and see how much good is actually happening from what we're doing. Sure, we're not where we would like to be right now as far as growth, but I think we're making great progress. And honestly, I think that if we were growing as fast as we would like to, we would have a whole bunch of other headaches.
Mm.
And I think that the rate of development that we are enjoying is really beneficial to us. So that way we can make sure that we have the foundation that we need to have a solid organization to be able to serve out our mission, which is to help other people to be able to find better ways to live, whether that be through Stoicism or some other wisdom tradition, that we need to be able to be excited about where we're going, but embrace where we are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think you're exactly right. Seeing that bigger picture. I mean, that's what we can get from Stoicism as well. This idea, we had this conversation with William O. Stevens recently, as you know, and yeah, man, just getting to the bottom of that theology where you start to see, oh my gosh, yet there is this massive web of interconnected, cause and effect that is constantly flowing around everywhere. And once you start to really sink into that ocean, it's like, wow, there really is that sense of pronoia, like that. Even Sharon, recently was talking to me about an insight that she had, and she was just saying, this insight that I'm getting is just that the world is not out to get us. It's not trying to push us down. There are forces, there are elements in the world that may be doing that, but ultimately, like you say, love your fate. Look for the opportunities to grow, to become stronger. And I do agree that in the walled garden, the progress that we have made so far, even just building our team. I remember that moment a few weeks ago when we're talking and Rocco and I were in person together and we were doing that meetup, and we're just looking at the people in the Zoom room, and Rocco just says, it's absolute pure class. You know what I mean? And that's what I would hope for, is that as we grow, our community is reflecting the values that we see in our philosophers as well. So yeah, it's exciting, and I also just feel as though there's this element of destiny, that this is all just coming together. There's an element of this is coming together at the right time in the right place. Maybe you could speak to this, because you do have that that theological background, and I might ask you about this, because I've experienced over the past 2 years that every so often I will get this little flash in my mind of some great ideal that I'd like to move towards, or some great, project that I'd like to happen. Or it happened with learning the didgeridoo. It happened with learning the piano again. I honestly, I'm so grateful that I've been able to make the progress that I've made on piano and didgeridoo over the past couple of years. It's been so meaningful for me. But that all just started with little flash of, oh, maybe I could do that, or maybe I could do this. And it never felt like I was forcing something, but I kind of just let it slip to the back of my mind. And then I just watched as it started to happen, And I remember, I don't know if you remember this, Scott, but a few months ago, I said to you, it'd be interesting, to consider. Now, this was when I was thinking like, oh yeah, we'll get massive investment, we'll build this, we'll build that, But I kind of said to you, I'd love to have a physical location to set up in, and to do the same thing that I did at the gym in Australia when I managed that, where I took this gym from 0 members, brand new gym in town. After a year, we had 1,000 members, thriving community, won the best new club of the whole franchise. Incredible opportunity for me, but also to give back to that community. And I said, what if we could do that over here? What if we could do a similar thing, but for philosophy and for the arts and humanities? And within, 3 months, 2.5 months of moving here, I meet this guy, Charles Kim, who's like, "Hey, I've got this music studio, and we start talking, and immediately we just fall in love with each other." And he's like, "Okay, the community is going to support you. Come in here, build it up, revitalize it. And on top of that, I'm interested in seeing how we can merge the walled garden in this community eventually." I'm just like, what? it's exactly it's exactly what I would have always hoped for, to find a physical location where I can really, dig my roots into the ground and say, this is where we're starting. Kind of that oikoiosis idea of, start with yourself, your little family, community, nation. So I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on this idea of destiny? These little, I don't know, little pieces of foresight where you just think, I'd love to, because for me, I could name 10, 15 of these that have happened over the past, 2 years. I don't know. What are your senses?
I don't know that I'm comfortable with the word destiny. I think that's where embracing and loving your fate, loving the good and the bad things that happened in your past. I think that's where the value in that comes, because honestly, you wouldn't be where you are without your past experiences. And through Stoicism, Buddhism, and other traditions, the goal is to become a better you. And if you are not in a place where you can like yourself, you're going to be in trouble. And to be able to like who I am today, I have to embrace the good and the bad things that happen to me. I've lived a very fortunate life, no doubt about that. But like everybody else, I've had things happen that were just devastating. But those helped me to grow into who I am, and I like who I am. Not all the time, usually, but I think that as far as the situation that you described, by keeping yourself open and learning from mistakes in the past, learning from good situations in the past, looking for people that can help lift you up, I think that is really what the walled garden is all about, is helping people to see and value those situations, those incidents in their life. And I think that the more we can really become to a point where we accept ourselves, the more likely we are to be happy. And that's not the ultimate goal in life. Shouldn't be. Happiness is fleeting, but the movement toward living a flourishing life, the eudaimonia that is talked about within Stoicism, if we can't accept who we are, we're never going to get there.
That's a tough one, right? To get to that place where, despite all the flaws, despite all the illnesses of the soul, you might say, you can still look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I think I like myself. Yeah, as in with everything that I could put as a negative check, I think there's more positive. And maybe it's not a matter of balancing it like that. But no, I appreciate that. I think that's vital advice. And
it's not a destination.
Yeah.
It's the journey.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was speaking about this with Rocco last night as well, this idea that there's always that. Well, I was speaking more specifically with him about this constant battle that I have in my head regarding, okay, sometimes I feel like, yeah, things are really happening on time. Things are really happening how they should. And it's more of a deterministic view of the world. And so I feel peace, I feel comfortable, yeah, okay, despite all the flaws, despite all the things that I'm not doing, okay, we're still moving ahead on time here. But then there's another part of me that's like, you've got to get at it. You've got to make the choice. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. You've got to do that. And it's that constant battle, between the peace of mind that comes from understanding that there is this kind of infinite web that we are a part of, and we don't make, 99.99999% of the choices. But then there is that part that you can act, you can, make the choice. And like you say, it's that constant wrestling. That is the journey. And that's exactly what Rocco said to me as well. It's in that wrestling that you find yourself. I think, who recently put it like this? I think it might have been John Vervaeke, putting it like the two hands together, pulling each other apart. Hopefully that keeps you on a stable path. But yeah, this is, I know that you mentioned at the start you weren't sure if we would get through half hour. I think we were about 45 minutes in, and I do want to have a round two, but let's maybe wrap it up with talking about the Stoicon coming up, Stoicon X, because you guys have done a phenomenal job, and I really want people to show up to this. I want to get a bunch of people booking for this because we've got some incredible speakers. So maybe you could just speak to more about that, and how you and Kai have chosen the guests and what the theme is and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and really, Kai has done an amazing job of getting the right people to work with us. I think that we're going to be. I'm really excited about the lineup that we have. And I should have had this up earlier. I'm trying to get there. Here we go. This is my first time organizing a Stoicon X. I think modern Stoicism has done an amazing job of how they have set up this process, and they give us a great example every year in Stoicon, which as you know is happening tomorrow. We have made the decision to make it a 2-hour window for Stoicon X Midwest, because it's difficult to get that many people lined up, but also people are busy. I definitely am excited to set the whole day aside tomorrow for Stoicon, but I think in the 2 hours that we have scheduled and the speakers that we have, I think we've got a lot of great material. I'm really excited that we're able to get Greg Sadler to open us up tomorrow morning at the beginning of our Stoicon X. He's got great insight. He's got a great life experience, but his experience is different than mine. I'm also excited that Chris Fisher is going to be right after him. And while they agree on many things, they have different opinions. They see things in a different way. And I'm grateful to be able to have both of those men on our list, because they will help us to be able to see how we can make Stoicism work in our modern life.
Can I just pause you there? Isn't that such a beautiful reflection of exactly what we're trying to do in the Walled Garden? Is to say, okay, we're making our decisions on who we bring on board as contributors or directors or even guests at our Stoicon X, not our, because it is separate branding, but the guests who we bring on board, it's character first. Do we think that we can trust you to give a really honest perspective based on your life experience, and also, to hold yourself to the fire of reason, and I genuinely believe that everybody we're working with is willing to be held to that fire. But what you're saying is, well, this person has a different life experience and they think something completely different to this person, but nonetheless, we can still bring them together, and we're excited to see what happens when you mix them all together and see what they figure out together. It's a phenomenal service, to bring those kinds of people together. So I love it, but please go on.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, we are intentionally developing a community that is not an echo chamber.
Exactly.
So many groups are focusing just on one perspective of the message, and I think that we've worked hard as the Walled Garden, and also especially for Stoicon X Midwest, to allow a broad perception, a broad life experience and perspectives that will help, hopefully will reach all of us. But I'm really excited, especially about the panel. The topic of the panel is, does traditional Stoicism have a place in our contemporary world? And on the panel, I think we've got a wide array of people who I truly respect because of their work, because of their writings, because of the things that I've learned from them. Kai, of course, serving as a moderator, Aldo Danucci, Chris Fisher, Leonidas Konstantakos, A.A. Long, Greg Sadler again, and William Stevens. I think that these are exactly the right people that we need to have to talk about the importance of how Stoicism can fit into all of our lives.
Yeah. It's such a wide variety there as well. You've got people who are more on the skeptical, maybe the atheistic side of things. You got people who are all in on the traditional Stoicism. I'm even just thinking here, we in that panel there, we've got like Brazil, we've got Florida, we've got the Midwest, we've got Canada, we've got the UK. These different national perspectives as well. It's very interesting. So yeah, again, you guys have done a great job. And then obviously after that, we've got Sharon's going to be speaking. I'll be doing a talk. Kai's going to be doing a talk. Looking forward to it. It's going to be great. Yeah. So we should probably mention to everybody, go to Stoicon X Midwest.com. Or if you go to thewalledgarden.com/events, you will see it as a featured event there on the page, and you can go and register for that. It's completely free. And, like Scott just said, just 2 hours packed full of great Stoic wisdom and discussion. And I love the idea too. I love the idea of saying, people can't always, dedicate their whole day. Maybe if we can pack all of this into 2 hours as kind of like a condensed Stoicon X, I think it's a brilliant idea. And I really think that people are going to appreciate that you guys are doing it like that.
Thanks. And I don't know if we've said the date, but it's Saturday, November 12th, starting at 10 a.m. Central.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Well, as I said, go register for that. And Scott, any final words? This has been such a beautiful conversation. I'm really grateful for you for having this conversation, and again for doing so much of the behind the scenes work in the Walled Garden. You've been so unbelievably helpful. I'm loving getting to know you more. But is there anything that you want to say before we wrap this up?
No, I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to you today, and definitely grateful for the opportunity to work with you and the others in the Walled Garden. I think that the direction that we're headed is truly the right way to go. We're trying to bring in a diverse grouping of people so that we can really be able to develop better community. And I think that in our times, and every generation says this, but I think right now, especially in the U.S., we're being pulled apart because of our differences. And I think that we can really, truly find value when we find that we agree with people who we disagree with. And we can learn from the disagreements that we have with people. As you talked about wrestling, people build strength by challenging themselves, and that's what philosophy. That's a big component of what philosophy is challenging yourself to find out what other people say about things, and when you do find a difference, trying to find what the truth is. And I think that you, Simon, and others have done such a great job of pulling together this community to encourage us and to provide the resources that we need to make the world a better place.
Well, we're on track, and that's it. Slowly we are making the world a better place. I know that through what we're doing. And now it's just a matter of scaling that impact, and seeing how we can find more and more ways to bring people into this community. So thank you, Scott. This has been great. And we'll wrap it up here. So we'll see everybody at Stoicon X Midwest. You don't have to be in the Midwest. It is an online event. So come along November 12th, and you can register at thewalledgarden.com/events. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Walled Garden podcast. Remember that this show is a part of the podcast network of the Walled Garden Philosophical Society. If you consider yourself to be a seeker of understanding, of wisdom, a cultivator of virtue, then we want to learn and grow with you. Just head over to thewalledgarden.com to find out more. We'll see you there, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.